started my career almost 30 years ago, 3 decades.
Right.
I graduated from USM.
Yep.
Science education.
Okay.
And I started as a production supervisor in 1989.
Okay. All right.
And later I had the privilege of joining the Malaysian Armed Forces.
Right.
I was posted as a training officer at the Royal Malaysian Naval College, or better known as KD Plando.
In Lumut.
Yes, exactly. After almost 25 years of working, I decided to start on my own.
Okay.
And I established this company called SMC, Trainers Malaysia.
Yeah.
We are a partner of University Technology Malaysia, where we focus on providing corporate training and also lifelong learning opportunities for working adults under an organization in UTM known as UTM Space, or School of Professional and Continuing Education.
Vanakkam. Thirukural is an ancient Tamil wisdom written by Thiruvalluvar more than 2000 years ago. Thirukural has 1330 kurals or couplets. And my favorite kural is Kural 391. Karka kasadara கற்பவை கற்றபின் நிற்க அதற்கு தக. The essence of this Kural is, whatever worth learning shall be learned thoroughly, deeply, and the result of that learning should be reflected in our behavior. My dear friends, in today's world, many of us are investing a lot of money and effort for education. Valluvar is clearly reminding us that education should not be reflected merely with qualifications and certificates. Education should be demonstrated with our mindset and skill set that enable us to add value to others. In this process, we will experience personal and professional growth. Why is this Kural relevant today? Ladies and gentlemen, the entire world is experiencing what is known as new normal due to COVID-19. The health authorities are advising us practicing, for example, social distancing and hand hygiene. If we understand the rationale for these recommendations, we will practice it sincerely, voluntarily. As such, knowing something deeply, thoroughly, as recommended by Valluvar, is very, very important to lead a good life. Thirukural is a great guide, and we are blessed to have Valluvar guiding us through his wisdom. I wish you all the best. Valga Valamudan.
Good afternoon, welcome. This is Malar from Hearts&Minds Development Center. Yes, we are going to talk about Thirukural with Major Dr. Prabhakaran Jayaraman. And as you've seen, that there was quite a bit of wisdom, because if you're wondering, what does a man with a doctorate who has 33 years of experience in L&D, including leadership roles in military and corporate training institution, talking about Thirukural? Now, if you're wondering, I'm also wondering, which is why I decided I'll stop wondering and I will just bring up to the show. So if you have questions, get ready your questions because Dr. Major Prabha is here. So let's bring him on all the way from Lumut. Hi, Major.
Hi, Malar, vanakkam.
Vanakkam. I think that would be the appropriate way to greet you. Vanakkam. I love the way you're dressed. I keep reminding myself, just make sure don't speak in Tamil, Malar, to Major in this show, only because we have English speaking audience. Kirtana was, of course, she put the video together. I hope you liked it. And then
Thank
she
you
was
very
doing,
much.
yeah, and
Thanks,
she was,
Kirtana. Thank you.
she's not smiling in the background. No, she's not. I guess she'll smile later for you. Yeah, so she put up there was another Tamil Thirukural that you had actually put up. And I thought was brilliant. So just to let you know, I've become very curious, right? So a little bit of background because I'm hoping my mom is listening. So everyone knows me as Malar really, right? At home in my growing years. So as I was born, I created some ruckus at home. So my mom insisted she didn't want to me want to be called didn't want me to be called Malar. So at home, my home name is Vasugi. So as I was growing, by now people know, how difficult, what a difficult kid I would have been. Right? So one of the questions I asked my mom is that, who is this Vasugi? And then she said, this is Valluvar's wife. Of course, later I figured out, I didn't go to a Tamil school. And I figured out that, she said he's a very intelligent man and Vasugi is the intelligent man's wife, But young, stupid, arrogant still, I said, I don't want to be intelligent man's wife. I want to be the intelligent woman. So today, if my mom is listening, I must thank her. I think she must have thought there must be some connection that she gave me that name. All right. So with that, welcome to the show. It has been so difficult to get you, and finally, we're glad we have you on board. So, Major, now tell me, how did you get excited about Thirukural?
Wow. I would say, how am I still excited about Thirukural now? And I hope forever.
Yeah.
You see,
Tell us the beginning of the love story.
Yeah. I mean, I went to school in 1972, long time ago. And until today, I still have a student ID. Right? I've been a student, or rather lifelong learner. I'm currently a postdoctoral student at UTM. So I've been a lifelong learner. When you go to school, I was not very good student, but at least you want to pass. So you pass the exam. And then you start working. You want to meet the jobs requirement. And throughout, in order to grow professionally, I get a couple of qualification. I wore graduation robe 6 times. My mom is bored of attending my graduation. And then in our business, Malar, you know very well, we got to be current, we got to look clever sometimes, you want to use some sophisticated words, and you want to conduct training. So that has been going on, like what you say, for almost 3 decades. About 5 years ago, I think, I came across Thirukural again. My mom and my dad is very well read, especially in Tamil philosophy. Long time ago, he mentioned, I'm also not Tamil school educated, right? So, but my father had Kural at home, and he had a mini library at home. So when I wanted to read Kural, he know my limitation. He said, hey, if you cannot read anything, at least read one Kural, right? Then I read it. I'll talk more about that Quran later. But in the last 5 years, more so during the MCO, when I started reading Quran, for once, I felt having a conversation with a guru. I've had that kind of feeling few times before, but this is very profound. And for the benefit of audience, all the friends here, guru means, gu means ignorance. Ignorance. Sometimes we think we know, but we really don't know. Or sometimes we don't do something not because we are trying to be difficult, we were just ignorant. So in Sanskrit, gu means ignorant. Ru means removal of that ignorance with the light of knowledge.
Wow.
Gu means ignorance. Ru means removal of that ignorance with the light of knowledge. So when I read Thirukural, or still reading, I'm just in the kindergarten of Thirukural, I felt somebody showing me the light. I felt somebody showing me the path. And genuinely, I get a sense of joy. You are in flow. And imagine, even for business, I'm conducting training today. But early morning, I gave a long case study to my course participants. I've scheduled it, planned it accordingly. But instead of preparing for the class, I was reading Kural. And I feel the joy of it. So that is how I came to Kural after I do enjoy reading. I read quite a bit. I've attended quite a bit of classes in few countries, corporate training, military training, academic training. But engaging with Kural, and namely Bhagavad Gita, I felt a kind of connection, a kind of joy, a kind of somebody showing you guidance, and more importantly, perhaps, as if Valluvar know my problem. At least as if he know my constraints, my limitations. So when I read every phrase of, we call that Kural, as if it's designed, customized for me, Malar. The kind of feeling I got.
Nice. Wow. You seem to, so what I would paraphrase in my world, what you're saying is that you seem to have a personal connection which is sounding like a spiritual experience for you, right? For me, that's how spiritual experiences are when I read stuff, right? Whether it's a book or a holy book, right? It's almost like, oh, they wrote it for me. It's talking to me. It's giving me the answers that I need. How did they know that I was looking for this? Or how did they know, or the writer knew that this is what I'm seeking, right? So it's for me, it's often miraculous. For me, it's books, right? When I go out there, the book that I pick up intuitively is the book I know was written for me. It calls out to me. So that's what I'm hearing. And I think the joy shows up in your face. I'm just going to say hello to all your fan club here, okay? Hi, Gerald. Yeah, Gerald is my fan club. Hi, Gerald. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Yes, thank you for the compliments. Jay, I think you will know Jay Sinaya. Again,
Hi,
your fan. Sashi Vadivel, I'm not sure whether he's your fan or my fan, but today he's my fan because he said Vasugi herself was very intelligent. Thank you, Sashi. Veera, I think you know her too.
Hi, Veera.
Yeah, and she's saying Vanakkam. I think her Tamil knowledge and I'm sure because she comes from that background, and I only know a little bit about her, and she's quite an impressive woman. So Veera, send in your questions and your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Jay says, "I love your frankness and humility, Major." I almost thought you were going to say I'm humble, Jay, but no, it's for Major, so it's fine. So. No, she's my good friend, so I know she doesn't lie. So I was confused. I said, why is she saying I'm humble? Me and humility very far. So, Major, I want to just go back to Kural, right? So what was fascinating for me is I've heard some of these Kurals and, I've never paid attention, right? And of course, whenever I speak to you, just your joy, because one of those things that we were spending time is, okay, what do we bring Major in for? Because of your expertise? Do I bring you in for training, leadership, and then, since you were passionate about both Bhagavad Gita and Kural, we decided Kural so that we can lead on to, introduce more people to the Kural, right? Now, one of those things that was intriguing me, right? It's very interesting that every Kural, which I only found out, has got 7 words. Is there a significance in in the 7 words that Vallabhar chose? I mean, would you know anything about it? This is the off the head question suddenly that's coming through, because even the 1330, right, adds up to 7. So is there a significance with the number 7?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of. But if you look at the journey, the chakras, there could be 7 layers or 7 levels, right? Even you may ask Nazreen, our good friend, even in the Islamic principles, there are like 7 layers. I must admit, I know next to nothing about it. Like 7 habits of highly effective people by Dr. Kavi, for example. There may be, but it will be interesting to hear if our member of our friends here who are listening can share the thoughts. No?
Yeah.
But I've never, it's a good question. I will explore that further.
Okay. But I do know from the Christian perspective, 7 means completeness.
Complete. Wonderful.
So, and they use it. I also know that I learned this from my good friend, Raj, right? Sarkune Raj. So in marketing, 7-Eleven, 7-Heaven. So 7 is, so it's a form of, in Christianity, I know it's about completeness. So when they talk about forgive someone 7 times, it's actually never ending, because it's a full cycle, right? That's my understanding of 7. So I was very curious about the number 7, whether it had any significance. But thank you very much. Let's move on, because I want to get as much brilliance of your kindergarten knowledge in Thirukural, okay? And Nirmala says, lovely to hear your enthusiasm when you speak of Thirukural. I can resonate with it when I hear my husband talking of similar topic. Looking forward to hearing more. Nirmala, tell Sashi to come online now, okay? Sashi is Nirmala's husband, Dr. Nirmala's husband. Let's move on. Now, so, we talk about, so it's very interesting, because we're talking about ancient wisdom. Last week we had Nazarene who spoke about the Holy Book of Quran, right, and parenting. So we're talking about your fascination with Thirukural, where you find so much of wisdom, so much of answers in today's world. And with the modern world, things have got complex. We've got so many literature. You've got modern teachers. You've got science, right? There's so much coming through, right? Now, if someone learner like you is fascinated with Thirukural 5 years ago, and you find it even more relevant in the current complex, confused world, right? Tell us, how do you see it relevant in the modern society for the people who are listening and are thinking, I got so many new things, why do we want to go back to ancient wisdom? And of all ancient wisdom, if they are they have got Indian roots and Tamil roots, for example, why Thirukural?
Sure. Modern. What does modern means? Relative to past. Present, modern, relative to past. Can I say that? Perhaps, yeah. What I'm trying to say here is, let us reflect back. Just because we are reasoned, are we more civilized?
Nice.
Let us do a bit of reflection, yeah?
Nice.
Just because we are reasoned, are we more civilized? So that is something that I want people to be aware. And if you Google a little bit, you will realize that the Quran was written about 2,000, 2,500 years ago, during what is known as the Sangam era, Sangam period. These are the ancient Tamil civilization. The third Sangam is when the Quran appeared. The first, some says about 20,000 years ago. The second, about 10,000 years ago, or so on. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say here is the ancient civilization, in terms of technology, could be much, much more civilized. Think about it, yeah. Have you been to Angkor Wat, Malar?
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah. If you go to Angkor Wat, I mean, the ancient architecture, from Indian background, yes, Surya Varman and all, you can Google for it. 1,500 years ago, they built Angkor Wat with a well-planned design irrigation system where there will be no flood. And there's a water control system where if there's more water than required, it will be flowed to another huge lake far away. And that design, I went there twice. Yeah, my tour agent actually put up a compass and showed me, Prabha, do you see thousands of years ago how they arranged it in exact order? Why I'm telling this? The ancient civilization had so much to teach, both in terms of engineering, technology, irrigation, flash flood in Kuala Lumpur with so many architectural experts. And here it is. So one thing I like to recall, or rather remind our friends here, the word research. I'm a researcher in the university. It's sometimes nothing new. Researching. Researching. So if you look at Tamil civilization for that matter, 2,000 years ago, we are super civilized people. The seafarers, I built warship for Malaysian Navy prior to become a corporate trainer. The Tamil civilization had brought seafarers thousands of years ago. Many parts of the world in Southeast Asia is influenced by that. So when you do research, you will realize it is so relevant. And like what you rightfully said, 1,330 verses of Quran in 3 key chapters. Imagine Vallabha thought of it. Aram, Porul, Inbam. Aram, virtue. It is so relevant today compared to many years ago. Can I say that? Virtue.
Well, I'm not sure that I'll say it's more relevant today. I think the beauty about wisdom, ancient wisdom, is always relevant at any stage of life. Is what I'm taking back.
Sure.
But so like what? But like what you said, right? It's amazing how they could foresee how these things work even today. I think that's the wisdom was already there. We're just drawing into what we already had instead of trying to create some new stuff, right? Because we already are drawing out what we already, the resources we already have.
Yeah, exactly. The message I wanted to, before going into your answer, you may be wondering, I'm trying to recall how to create the answer now. So what I'm saying, Malar, modern, I just want you and our friends to understand out there, modern is just a context of now, time, that's it.
Relevance,
Don't get excited about modern means as if you are more civilized.
Yeah, I like the connection, the context that you gave between what is considered modern and civilized, right? Because I think every generation believed that they were modern and the past generation was outdated, right? So it's actually being present and feeling relevant to what works for me today. But I think what you're drawing context is very much whatever we say is modern, is relevant, fine. See it in context to see whether for living of the human nature, are we living in a civil way with whatever we say is better, right? Because the whole idea of living as humankind is to be civil, right? So we have all of these processes that's coming through because we need to be civil, right? And I think I think that context, that connection is brilliant. So yes, you were taking us through Aram, Porul, and Imbam.
Yeah. So one thing, the one message I want to share here, at least from my perspective, is ancient wisdom, at least in the context of Sangam, was much, much more civilized. Number one.
Mm.
And particularly, in my opinion, Thirukural, Valluvar brought it so clearly with Aram.
Mm.
And we can explore further. Aram means virtue. And Porul, wealth. But contrary to common belief, Valluvar did not define Porul with your bank balance. He had much more wider context of asset, including talent, the business of you and me, including diversity, inclusivity, including sustainability. These are the topics people are talking about 21st century. But Valluvar thought of that 2000 over years ago. So why is it relevant, Malar? Let me just share my thoughts here. I shared with you, my father introduced Kural a long time ago. He mentioned, in Tamil, of course, yeah, for your brain, you don't need to do all the complex things, like read one thing enough. He understood my limitation. So he said, go and explore Kural 391. If any of the audience listening here, just Google for Kural 391. Your question is, why is it relevant, right? Kural 391, as I said in my video, perhaps that was one or two few Kurals I know in Tamil, so I cari makan with the same Kural again and again. So bear with me, right? Kural says, Karka kasadara, Karpavai katrapin, Nirka adarku taga. Karka kasadara. That means whatever that you are learning, learn thoroughly, without any constraints or limitation. Karka kasadara. Go thoroughly, not just read an executive summary of it and looks clever. By reading a phrase of it and say looks clever. He said, that's not what learning is all about. So, Katka kasadara. Karpavai katrapin. Learn what need to be learned. Because in today's world, we are sort of pampered with so much of information. We are drowning with data, but starving for wisdom. We are drowning with data, but starving for wisdom. So, Katka kasadara, Karpavai, what need to be learned? Karpavai katrapin, Nirka adarku taga. Nirka adarku taga means behave like one la. Simple as that. If you say you are a leader, behave like one la. If you say you are a father, behave like one la. Fatherhood is not just making babies, yeah? Beyond that. So behave like one. So Valluvar put it in such a beautiful context. And I did not realize this until I started my PhD research. And among the area of interest for my research is on something called learning transfer. Nirka adarku taga. Meaning, what we learn, what we apply. You'll be surprised, yeah? Association of Talent Development, a lady called Emma Weber, she produced a report in 2018, special report, July 2018. They said less than 20% of what we learn, we actually apply at workplace. You know, if that means if a country spend 1 trillion ringgit in education or in budget, in our case, it could be about 60 billion ringgit or so in our budget, meaning almost 80% of it is a mere waste. More recently, Michael Beer wrote an article. The title was Great Training Robbery. Imagine, Malar, a title from Harvard Business Review, Great Training Robbery. You and me are in the training business, and they say great training robbery. Here they say again, more or less 80% of the training is not translated. So why I'm telling this is important, my friends. Both Malar and I are in training business, yeah? Of course, we want people to attend training. But I come to a term now, if you are not going to apply what you learn, don't waste your money. Especially leaders. If you're going to sign the check for your L&D department, be responsible for that. If you're a minister, responsible for the money. There are people dying of not enough food or basic medical things. Don't spend money on training, which is a waste. If we don't have a plan to do what we call as post-training activities. So this is super relevant today because we are pampered with information. We can just Google. You know, with micro-credential and all that, we don't have to go to university. We can stack up. We can take qualifications. We can acquire certificate from Harvard, Cambridge, online classes. But Walluva reminded me, Prabha, just because you have a bit of title here and there, don't think you are clever if you are not applying it. So one particular Kural, thanks to my father, Katka Kasadara, whatever you learn thoroughly. Don't just go YouTube, read about 1 or 2 medicine and then try to have a conversation with the doctor. The guy spent entire life learning about disease. One YouTube channel is not enough. Kasadara, whatever you learn thoroughly. Nikka adarku taga. So this alone, Malar, is relevant for today and I think forever.
Nice. Nice. Now, many people have Googled Kural 391 and they put in the various version. All right. From Jay to Sarjit to Gerald to Captain Shan is here. My darling Abang, yes, he's there, and Sashi has given us the answer to the number 7. So obviously, there's you've engaged people to go and figure this out. So going back, so thank you. I think Kural 391 is so amazing. It is just don't learn, learn deeply, learn with relevance, and practice what you learn, right? Use it to live your life is what you are saying. Now, as you say that, right, you were introducing us to Aram, Porul, and Inbam, right? I think I somehow rather interjected you. So do you want to take us back to Aram, Porul, and Inbam? Because I don't think you covered Inbam. You said virtue for Aram. Porul is wealth. But I don't think we got to Inbam. Do you want to just expand on that before we move on?
Sure. You see, Kural is to be seen as a coherent, integrated approach. Dr. Shan introduced the concept of Sanget. I mean, if even in the thought process, if it's not imbalanced, the journey won't be fine. So, Aram, virtue, Porul, wealth, both of these to be seen from the foundation of Dharma. Dharma means the righteousness. when you gain that, inbam is the natural consequences.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, if you gain something wrongly, but of course in Kural, there's a lot of emphasis on women, relationship before marriage, after marriage, sustainability of the beauty, how you have a conversation with the lady, how you describe the beauty. All that is beautifully stated. No? And the relationship, the way they define sex in a very, very spiritual dimension, if I may use it. Not a very last surface level of kind of a relationship. So, aram, virtue, porul, wealth, inbam. It is to be seen as an integrated approach.
Nice.
And one thing that I like to remind all of us, in the entire Kural, never once Valluvar mentioned about religion, God, from any particular context.
Nice.
It is universal. So it says aram, porul, inbam, and he didn't go to the next stage called moksha or nirvana. He said, you want to go moksha, nirvana, all that is your problem. Let us talk about worldly affair. When you conduct yourself well, the worldly life will be inbam.
Nice. So would inbam, does that mean joy of life, joy of living? Would that?
One context of it, of course, in Kural, there's a lot of relationship in terms of family, wife. That was the context. All right? The whole idea is, the joy.
The joy of living.
Yeah, imagine living with somebody where you have conflict every other day at home. That will have a consequences in the office, right? If you have problem at home, Kirtana will be the victim, right, Malar?
She's listening. She is.
So that is what I mean. Yeah, that is the 3 dimension of it that I like to emphasize.
Nice. Okay, nice. All right. So you've introduced us to how you fell in love, and then you took us through your favorite Kural 391, and then you introduced us to integrated part of Aram, Porul, and Inbam, right? How virtue and wealth actually leads us to joyful living in the spaces that we need, right? And you also brought in a very important aspect of modern. Doesn't mean we are civilized, and the whole idea is actually for us to be civilized, we're looking for the light every time. We're looking for information. Whatever we are looking for is really to embrace the light or look for the light so that we can see clearly, right? And for the purposes of the joy of living, right? So having said that, right, Major, how do you, so in your personal experience with all the humility that you have, park the humility just for the next half an hour or 20 minutes, because that's all we have. We know you're humble, we know you're kindergarten, we know all of that, right? But in your own experience, both having been a leader, in spaces, not everybody get to be a leader in the military, right? Having been a leader, having thought leadership, having spent time with leaders and their own challenges, real life challenges. It's not easy, right? Now, how do you find Thirukural, the wisdom that you gain from Thirukural on leadership? How do you find that different from other sources? Right? So if there are leaders listening and they're thinking, I'm listening to Major, and I think, maybe there are some question, it's not sitting in with me with the books that I've read. I've read so many books on leadership, but there's this nudging question that I have in my heart. I'm not settling in. I'm looking for something more, right? Something more. And maybe, after listening to Major, I'm going to think, maybe I need to look into Thirukural. In your experience, how is it different?
Sure. I mean, I've not read enough about leadership. I've not taken enough about leadership and so on. Yeah, that's a context. But let me, in my journey of searching for more context of today's Kural from leadership perspective, I came across a beautiful thesis by a gentleman called Dr. Jason Smith. And he did a PhD in Thirukural for his PhD from Harvard University, among the best university in the world. And I wrote down the executive summary of Dr. Jason Smith. You guys can Google if anybody, Jason, Jason Smith, Smith, Thirukural, Harvard, published in 2020, quite recent. And he said, vision of human life from the perspective of Thirukural. Inward cultivation of virtue, accompanied by outward expansion of human relations in which both of these are mutually enrich and support each other. You see, that particular word, inward cultivation, that comes internally. And then because of that, your relationship with the external are enriched and did support each other. When I read this, it reminded me of Dr. Stephen Covey's work on the 7 Habits. Because Dr. Covey, I had a privilege of meeting him. I'm a certified trainer by Dr. Covey, right? And the joy, that was in 89. I mean, a long time ago. So I'm very careful. I'm very conscious about, is it something new? I'm not comparing. Yeah? Valluvar never claimed to be the only material or whatever. Yeah? He just said what he wanted to say. But what attracted me was, the focus was in that context, inward cultivation. He is not promising if you have mastered this, you're going to get a flight ticket to heaven or moksha, or you want to do. No. He said, cultivate the virtue internally. And because of that, your relationship with others, because life is interdependent. That's what you may be well aware what Dr. Covey talked about, maturity continuum. The highest level of maturity is realizing that we are interdependent. And Valluvar mentioned that beautifully. So I think that is something that our friends here may want to pay attention. One thing I love. And as I mentioned, Aram Porul, wealth. Thirukural did not talk about wealth with your bank balance or your Swiss bank account only. I love 2000 over years ago, Valluvar in chapter 40. In Thirukural, it's interesting, yeah, there are 1330 kurals in 3 sections in 133 chapters. Every kural have 7 words. 7 words, sorry. So wealth is one of the chapter. In chapter 40, for example, he mentioned about lifelong learning. You know, a man who graduates today and stop learning tomorrow is uneducated the next day. A man who graduates today and stop learning tomorrow is uneducated the next day. And Valluvar reminded us more than 2000 years ago that being active learner. Sometimes ago you shared a report on World Economic Forum with me. There's one particular skill set for the future. Here they're talking about skill set for 2025. And one of the 10 skill set besides EQ was active learning. Active learning. And Valluvar mentioned that as an asset in chapter 40 of Thirukural. And I love in chapter 42, there was an entire chapter about art of listening.
Wow.
Entire chapter, 2000 years ago, art of listening. And you know, Dr. Stephen Covey, in his Habit 5, he talked about seek to understand, then to be understood. So, what Walliver said, when you are having a conversation, whether with your people, with your loved ones, when you are genuinely listening, when someone talks to you, or when you are talking, someone sincerely, genuinely listen to you, how would you feel, Malar?
I feel alive, I feel present, and I feel visible.
Be
I don't,
alive.
I don't feel like a ghost lah. When I'm not
Right.
listening.
Can
I'm
I say you feel appreciated?
Yes, yes, surely.
Surely, right? And Walliver mentioned that, yeah? Listen. And today we know appreciation is oxygen for the soul. Appreciation is oxygen for the soul. There are many people who are deprived with basic appreciation and purely listening to make them, taking your word, feel present. And Walliver quoted as the wealth. Imagine leaders who are listening, acknowledge I need help to learn to listen. Because I go to the meeting, I call 10 people for a meeting, I speak 80% of the time. That means I need the art of listening and acknowledging that it's a skill. Walliver mentioned that, chapter 42, as wealth, yeah, wealth. Another wealth in chapter 73, he said, courage of facing an assembly, literally public speaking. Even the great investor like Warren Buffett, who said, among all the skills he acquired, public speaking skills, the skills of expressing an idea in a group of learned people, and he considered as wealth. No, so I've listed, and one last thing, if I may talk, in chapter 89, he said, hey, learn how to manage the enemy within. Sometimes we don't have to have an external enemy, enemy within. No, I'm currently, this week, I'm reading a book by Rick Carson called, maybe you have read, Taming Your Gremlin. Taming Your Gremlin, Rick Carson. No, there's a recent book, not really, this book was 80s, but edited. And Walliver spoke about all these 2,000 years ago, and so on and so forth, yeah? The message I'm telling, your question, back to your question, Prabha, what is so different about this leadership? Maybe because of my cultural connection, I'm biased to the language, I'm biased to my own thought process. I love it. On top of that, after I've read quite a book about leadership, sitting in the leadership position, being the major in the army, I was the head of a Marine Academy, and so on and so forth. Reading this book humbled me. And I felt like a rich man without having big bank balance in the definition of wealth.
Nice, nice. Well, actually, you have answered that question for me. I don't know about for the audience. Now, if he hasn't answered, you all have to ask the question. But as usual, I got the answer of. So what I got from you in what you were saying is that you actually listed out, in your own way, Aram and Purul, right? And I think what you've got us to think about, or got me to think about, is that, when we talk about, I think virtues are quite straightforward when we talk about it, right? But I love the way you've actually, help us focus on the chapters where wealth is redefined. We, the modern society, right, have defined wealth materially, but how much of wisdom was there to look at talent as a wealth, right? To look at listening as wealth, right? And for me, all the things that you've said, what the modern leadership books have done is that they've probably taken one Kural and written a few books. I mean, there are thousands of books on listening, right? There are thousands of books on different virtues of personal development as well as leadership, right? But what I'm hearing from you is that all of these thousands of books that we've learned, actually, if you read the Quran and you understood it and you practiced it, first, internally you will self-realize who you are, right? And you bring what I will consider your best version to life, which then shapes your interaction with people, which is what leadership is all about. Because it is about influence. You are most influential when you're not trying, because you're most influential when you're living, right? And probably that's what I took back as inbam, right? The joy of living. If you just live to be your best version, you are in joy, and when you are in joy, people are attracted to the joy you are, and that's influence, right? And whether you want to call it leadership or not, I think it's just label. So you have answered my question. I'm not too sure whether I took the context the way you had presented it, but these were my major takeaway, for us to rethink what wealth is, right? Maybe, and as you said, this is really shedding light for us to um, reflect and contemplate, really, what is wealth for me, right? What is the idea of listening? And of course, being emotional intelligence advocate, I would say you've looks like I have to read the Quran just to look at the EQ lessons that we have missed out, right? It's, and I'm sure it's all there, written in different forms, and different titles. So thank you very much for that. And this month is the month of June, dedicated to fathers, right? Fathers who are thriving, who have been given the role of leadership. All right. And we all know it's not easy, and I know you're a dedicated father, right? Now, for me, dedicated fathers are fathers who keep trying, right? That's what dedication means, not people who think they've made it. Because I'm not sure whether any fathers have made it, like what you say, lifelong, right? So tell us, what are some either Kurals or nuggets of wisdom that you've drawn from the Kural about fatherhood as you read it now? Because you have three grown-up children, right? You have three grown-up children. I'm sure it's a joyful journey as much as you would have faced challenges as a father, right? But now that you've been reading Quran in the last 5 years, there would be some things, I don't know, right? You read and then you'll be thinking, I wish I had read this much earlier when my kids were younger. Or even if you read it, but I wish I had understood this wisdom much earlier, right? Whether we are ready or not, that's a different question. So tell us some nuggets of wisdom about fatherhood that we can dedicate to the fathers who are listening and who will listen in afterwards, and perhaps even the mothers and the daughters and the sons will listen into the nuggets of fatherhood, Major.
Sure, Malar. I hope the learning opportunity and conversation like this help me to be a fraction of a father as my father. I'm sure he's listening from the heaven. No. The whole idea, again, to prepare for this course, this conversation, Malar, I read 3 books and prepared a summary. I didn't do this for my PhD Viva, I think. Thank you for the opportunity to revisit. Yeah. So I particularly, as I said, in Quran there are 1,330 verses and 133 chapters. And chapter 96, Quran 953, emphasize, if I may read, translation. And my translation was done by Dr. S.M. Dyers, who was the former IGP and an economic professor from India.
Okay.
Just to see the modern context. Quran 953 reads, families bound by standard of behavioral codes, traditions, are marked by 4 traits. 4 traits. Number 1, a cheerful face. Easier said than done, right? Cheerful face. Number 2, generosity. Be generous. In the culture, giving. That's why if you go to your grandmother's house, you'll come back at least with a flower or fruit. Right? You go to village, you'll come back with something. You go anywhere, you go with something generous. If you don't have anything, just keep a smile. wish them well,
Nice.
the law of giving, kindly speech. They say everything that comes from a human body stings. At least keep your sweet speech sweet. That we have choice. The rest that naturally come out of it, we don't have choice.
Mm.
But speech, we have choice.
Mm.
So cheerful face, generosity, kindly speech, and courtesy, showing politeness in one's attitude and behavior towards others. For me, if a father or mother look at this as the key performance indicator of a civilized family,
Mm.
collection of family is what makes a community.
Nice.
Collection of community is what makes a nation. Collection of nation is what makes the world. If we can just pay attention to Kural 953 and works towards it, I believe Waldur will be smiling that we are having this conversation.
Nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. So you've encompassed fatherhood, rather parenthood, actually, in the four virtues, right? Do we show up with a cheerful face? Generosity in the art of giving. Can we be kind in the way we speak, and most importantly, can we be courteous? All right, which reminds me of respect. So thank you very much for that. Because if we see this within us by living it, and we can hopefully inspire and influence our immediate families to live that way too, right? Because it's energy exchange. And like what you said, we start off with ourselves and then we go on to our families, and families makes communities, communities make nations, nation makes the world. So thank you. That was simple enough to understand, all right, but enough to keep us going for a lifetime of practice, right? So before we close, we have last 5 minutes. Sashi Vadivel has asked a very interesting question, right? I hope I pronounce it correctly. Which author's explanation, Urai of Kural, do you like the most? So he's asking which explanation. So he's looking for an author, I suppose. Which author do you listen to in terms of the Urai? Number two is, which is your favorite Kural in Kamathupal, is it?
Yeah.
Did I pronounce it correctly? Kamathupal.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Aramporul Inbam.
Okay.
Yep. Hi, Sashi. I'm limited because I'm yet to learn to read Tamil, but that's soon. I'm going to enroll in Tamil class and start learning. Yeah. So because of the limitation, I stick to Dr. Dias, right? And the translation or the general editor is by Dr. Mahalingam, who is actually one of the founder or leader on International Society for Investigation of Ancient Civilization. Right. So I love this book by Dr. Dias because of the translation, and I like in this book he also quote from other gospel truths, from Bible, from Quran, and from Stoic, which is one of my favorite. Right. So I like that perspective of it. In terms of Kamat I must admit I'm not thorough, or I'm not in depth understood all the verses, but I particularly like the Kural on 953, which talks about basic characteristics of managing a happy family. No, and in that process, there's a lot of description how you treat your wife, the choice of words, and so on and so forth. I must admit, on this context, I'm still a kindergarten, got to read more and enjoy the learning. I hope I answered you, Sashi.
Okay, Sashi, that's for you. Connect with Major on LinkedIn and Facebook, and ask more questions, because that will probably lead him to read more and do more survey for us by sharing his knowledge with us. So thank you very much. I'm not sure how you're feeling, but I've written 3 pages of notes in terms of Kural. I must read to you what Captain Shan has said, Shanmugamurthy. He says, "Thank you, Dr. Prabha. You have now inspired me to write on Thirukural and the coaching masteries." So Shan has written a couple of books. He's the author of, and he's heading, the International Coaching Federation,
He's my teacher. I attended coaching class from him.
Yeah, I like the way y'all are teachers to each other. He's another doctorate person who is very, very humble. Doesn't even, so if you meet him, you'd never think that he's a doctor until you read his credentials, because I've known him all my years. One of my guiding lights, right? For some reason, I don't call him Chegu. I just call him Abang. So yes, so thank you very much. Veerama saying beautiful content, Malar, very insightful. Thanks to you and Major Prabha. Yeah, so everyone is thanking you. So I want to thank you for doing so much of work, right? So much of work to just for this 1 hour session, but you've definitely left us with a lot of nuggets of wisdom as to where to search, where to look for if we wanted some answers for ourselves, right? So we want to thank you for that, Major. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, my suggestion is read something that you can have a conversation with the author. So be a friend of the author, and it's very, very important for learning. In Tamil, we call that Sisya Tanmai, a big word, disciplehood. In Malay, we call Adab Belajar. So that means we have these internal values that I want to learn. Even today, when I go for my Bhagavad Gita class, I go bow on the feet of the teacher and sit on the floor. Now, that is a cultural context. Whether it's relevant to you or not, I respect that. But go with the idea of the desire to learn. And that will only happen if we are aware of another words from Tamil which says, Katrathu kaimannalavu, kalladadu ulagalavu. Meaning what we know is just a drop of sand compared to the entire world. With that humility, I wish you all the best in the joy of learning. And thank you very much for the opportunity. Because of this preparation, I had the opportunity to revisit quite a bit of Kural, and I realized that's the beginning of this wonderful journey. Wish you all the best, my friends. Vanakkam.
Thank you, Major. Thank you very much for spending your time, especially now that you're training. Wish you all the best, and happy Father's Day, blessed Father's Day, and continue to be the father of this part of the world where you keep nudging us in the spaces that we need to go. So thank you. I hope you'll have some space for your lunch, and thank you very much. So see you when we see you again. Vanakkam. Thanks. All right, so that was Major Dr. Prabhakaran. I'm sure you've benefited a lot. I want to thank everybody who has engaged and with the topic. We hope you found it useful. If you know speakers like this and you want us to bring them on board, please connect with me and give me their name so that we can connect, and we all can learn from each other. So with that, this is Malar from Being Whole, Being Me, Series 59. We spoke about Thirukural, the voice of wisdom, with Major Prabha. For those who've missed it, you can listen to this via here or YouTube. We are also on Spotify. Just look for Being Whole, Being Me, so that you can forward the Spotify onwards, right? Pass it on. So with that, thank you very much it's not Father's Day yet, but otherwise, keep safe. And when you're confused and you're looking for inner voice and some light, you now know you have Thirukural. With that, thank you. Have a brilliant weekend and stay safe. Bye.